back at Hughes again today.
On a very autumnal day, actually.
It's incredibly autumnal. Autumn seems to arrive really early this year.
Well, it was bang on point. As soon as it was September 21st, autumn straight away. And it was raining sideways this morning. I was trimming the garden just for you.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad I had full waterproofs because, man, it was like, it was so bad.
The thing we've learned in the last few days is that places very often look much smaller in real life than they do on camera. And I don't know that it's necessarily that they're actually smaller, it's just that it's your perception of how it's going to be.
Yes. I think as time progressed, when you Byther Farm 1.0, as it grew and matured, it seemed to expand in size, even though the actual footprint was the same, because there was so much there. It just seemed like it was getting bigger and bigger, because it was in a way with all the things growing and the maturity, but it was still that same size. It's kind of amazing.
I think as stuff got taller, it kind of gave it a more of a sense of proportion and so.
I really do think you could have got away with moving the fence line a couple of inches each year just to get would have worked, I think.
So we're at a new space now, and it's, so Hugh hasn't been to see our new space since we moved in, but you came with me to take some plants there.
I did.
Shortly before we actually moved home.
I got an exclusive view of it before it got Liz's touch.
So how has your gardening year been?
Like most years, kind of a bit all over the place. Spring was so tough. It was a very weird spring. I think everyone, at least in the UK, can agree with that.
Yeah.
It was very, very cold, and then it was also very dry. And it's a challenge. And whenever you hit February, you start seeing your Instagram feed fill up with people who are starting their tomato seedlings and like all of these things ready to go out, and I'm like, I haven't sown anything yet. And then all you're doing is you're keeping them on a windowsill, and they're gradually getting more and more leggy until you can put them out. So I actually like to really gradually ease into the season. So for me, the almost the marker is that I start my onion sets and sowing broad beans start of March. And that's kind of the first thing that I do, the tradition of setting off the new season, really.
Has there been anything that's been surprisingly good this year?
The polycrop that we're in now, the soil was so bad coming into this year because obviously there was the bird flu. And so our chickens were in here, and so the beds just turned to dust. And it was basically starting from zero.
So how did you then try and rejuvenate it?
So the first thing is that because it was literally a dust bowl. So I just put on a load of water, but what you find when it's a dust bowl is that the water just kind of sits, it doesn't really go in. What I did is I put on a load of water, left it for an hour or two, come back, put on more water, so it start to incorporate itself naturally. Then I put kind of a 3 to 4 centimetre layer of compost over the top. And then I watered that really heavily. So for each of the raised beds in here, I probably put on 8 to 10 watering cans, so 80 to 100 litres of water. And then left those for a day. And then I made this LAB concoction, lactic acid bacteria, which is one of the Korean natural farming techniques. And LAB, they're effectively the emergency service workers of soil, and they kind of really kickstart that microbiological life and activity. So I then put that on top, and then I just watered that in, nice and simple. And then I just put plants in, because one of the best things you can do to build soil health is make sure that plants are actually growing in that soil, that their roots there. So just put plants in as soon as possible, and then just in one of the corners I mulched some of the tomatoes with some wool packaging. The carrots that are down in the bottom, they're the first thing that I sown this year. It was in fact the first video that I filmed with my colleague Sam when he started. And they did amazingly, even though the soil was really pretty terrible. I'm still harvesting carrots from them today. It's amazing.
I was talking to a friend the other day about some of the new projects that you've got coming up and how excited I am by them. And last year you started regenerative films.
Yes.
And you put up a couple of videos on that. So thank you for talking to me for one of those.
I've filmed 4 more that need editing now. So that's part of my autumn winter project for there.
So if you haven't discovered regenerative films yet, it's Hugh's other
passion
channel.
project.
It's your passion project. It's so far it's been talking with people who are doing food production in a regenerative agriculture way.
I've got 2 really awesome projects in Scotland that are filmed. I also visited an amazing project in Pembrokeshire that are combining blueberries and ducks.
Fantastic.
So yeah, there's some things coming. I'm thinking of putting out the master interviews as well, because what I love about when you meet different producers is that they all have different experiences or different ways of approaching particular problems and challenges. So yeah, it'll be nice to get that up.
Yeah, brilliant. So for next year, are there going to be any major changes in the garden next year, or will it be the ever-evolving process that you've been doing?
Well, that's what autumn's for, isn't it? Autumn is for a different shift of energy. Yeah, it's about brainstorming, taking actually a step back, so have more of a bird's eye overview of everything, because in spring and summer it's so easy to get caught up in all the growing and everything. So next year there's all sorts of things that could happen. I just haven't worked it out yet. I think probably add to the compost production capacity.
Yeah.
Think that might be something. Maybe do some more bed layouts adjustments. Definitely put some more trellis along more of the fence of the garden. That would be really nice. Some more like smaller projects. But then I've got lots of other projects that are kind of related to gardening. They're going to start kicking off, that linking the food and the eating.
Yeah,
and
so you mentioned Sam is working with you earlier on. So Sam is he another gardener?
Sam is a professional chef and kind of turned gardener as well, because I got him involved since March, and it's great because we'll come to the garden and I'm like, oh, could you sow these seeds? And he does it all perfectly. And we started this thing called Farmer and Chef, and it's on Instagram and it's got its own website. And the idea is creating recipes using things that are just that come from the garden, using the garden as the base inspiration for creating delicious meals. We've just launched a kitchen garden fermentation course, because it's a very niche thing, especially in the UK, fermentation. But it's a very exciting thing, because as soon as you learn the techniques and principles, you can almost do anything to your crops, and it's a great way of preserving. Plus, you make beer and wine. That was mainly my kind of excitement.
So is that within your Abundance Academy?
Yeah, it's within that. And then other things we want to very much dive deeper into the recipe sides, but there's other potential projects.
Do you need people to come and sample food that you've cooked?
Well, we might be doing some pop-up restaurants.
That would be nice.
Some pop-up supper clubs or something. So
might they pop up at Byther Farm?
Oh, yeah.
That would be nice.
Yes.
That would be amazing.
That'd be good fun. We'll chat more about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to really just celebrate the growing and the eating. So just try and make those connections more, because there is a deep connection, but at the moment they're quite segregated, I think.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to try and
one of the things
challenge.
that you've been doing, I've noticed for quite a while now in your videos, is when you talk about something, you will talk about how it works in the kitchen.
I'll try to.
You know, so a little bit
I've got
like...
to thank Sam for that.
It's a little bit like when we talk about sweet Sicily, and I almost always link that to with cooking it with rhubarb.
Yeah.
All those little bits and pieces that in some ways become second nature when you're doing them are actually not second nature unless you already know them. So I think sharing some of those links is a really good idea.
Yeah, that's it.
And so, wherever you are in the world and whatever you've got planned for today, I hope it's a good one, and I also hope you'll join me again next time.